Another round of applause, please, as he takes his seat. Thank you, Prof. You may be seated. Our next and final speaker is none else but Mrs. Ibukun Awoshika. Ibukun Awoshika is the Chair, Board of Directors at First Bank of Nigeria. She is also the Chief Executive Officer at the Chair Center Group. Ibukun chairs a number of corporate and not-for-profit boards. With her high interest in social issues, including women, Mrs. Awoshika is a co-founder and chairperson of Women in Business Management and Public Service, WIMBIS. An ordained pastor and founder of the Christian Missionary Fund, Mrs. Awoshika, through this faith-based organization, works with hundreds of missionaries spreading across Nigeria to change the lives and destinies with the provision of medical, education, and other supplies within different parts of Nigeria. Mrs. Awoshika is a multiple award-winning entrepreneur and the first Nigerian recipient of the prestigious International Women Entrepreneurship Challenge Award, and is a nominee of the U.S. Department of State. Please join me as we welcome one more time to the platform, Mrs. Ibukun Awoshika.
Wow. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Nigeria. It's my privilege, always a privilege to be at the platform. And I don't take it for granted. It's always an opportunity for us as a nation to look each other in the eyes and have a conversation. And as Pastor Bojo and his team have done an amazing job over the years and have grown in leaps and bounds with this project and brought different talents, Nigerians and international, from different parts of the world to share their thoughts. It's become the primary thought leadership platform for our nation. Because, yeah, they deserve that you put your hands together for them. We must never get tired of conversing, because as we're speaking to one another, we will find the nuggets and the solutions that we will take up, and hopefully we will throw our entire weight behind it to make it happen for our nation. We're too important to the rest of the world. Everybody wants us to do well. I haven't been to a place or met any leader from anywhere that just wants Nigeria to work. Even more importantly is when you speak to Africans, they just need Nigeria to work so they can have the right example, so they can have the hope and the aspiration that things will work for them too. And just imagine a Nigeria that totally goes wrong. Who can contain us? Which nation around us? Who has the capacity to take half of this nation, let alone talk about the whole? How many Nigerians try to cross the Mediterranean, see the troubles when you compare to the number of Nigerians that are at home? But this is our country. Everybody else can offer to help us and wish us well. But it doesn't matter what they wish us. It doesn't matter what help they offer us. The only time we are going to be is when we have reached the point that we know is absolutely important for us to be. When we have reached the point and we make up our mind, and that's every single one of us. I knew that different people would take different parts of this topic today. And I just listened to a very brilliant, passionate Nigerian coming from the part of his own experience and sharing as if we had some time to discuss together. But I titled mine, The Drivers, Enablers, Obstacles to Our Growth, but I wanted a national conversation. Because, you know, I think everything we need to do to make Nigeria work, we either have it in one report, or we have it in one idea someone's thought of, or one commission or one group has done a job on it, or we have brilliant Nigerians like the professor who know what we should be doing. And a lot of it is ready and waiting and available. But there are many other things, some of the softer things that are unresolved, that kill our ability to take advantage of those other things that will help the greatness of this nation to be unleashed on the world. So I've chosen to have what I call a national conversation. And if you're watching us from home, I'd like to plead, and if you're in this room, that you have a pen and that you have a paper. I'd like to plead that if you're gathered together around your TV set in your home or somewhere, that you will discuss the things we will discuss. And that even when platform is finished today, and we all go home, that in our homes, in our offices, and wherever it is that we are, in our boardrooms, at every executive council meeting of any level of governance, that we will have honest conversations about this. I would like to start by challenging us that one thing, we can say anything to anybody else, but to ourselves, we must forever be true. To ourselves, we must be true. Why? If you indulge yourself in self-deceit, you can never get to the truth of your problem. And if you do not tell yourself the truth and identify what your real problem is, you cannot begin to find the right solution that you can apply to move yourself forward. We can live in denial all we like. We can get engrossed in our little squabbles or our little territorial wars. But at the end of the day, we have a nation to build. And a nation that we must build so that it works for every single one of us. A nation that needs to work so that every single one of us can have a better life, a better future. I don't care how old you are now. If you're 50, 60, and you're already rich, whatever problems of this nation we do not solve, they will come to roost at your doorstep when you're 70 and you're 80 or 90. Because the things we don't solve will create the problems of your late age, and you will not sleep well in peace. Because the problems will come to your door to roost. So it's not just about whoever we are now, whatever we have now. It's not about how comfortable we are now. It's about what must work for a nation to work. Because when the nation works, it works for every single one of us. Every single one. The rich, the poor, the old, the young, the one in the village, the one in the city. Wherever we are, the ones that live in the diaspora will walk with a little more gait. Because they can have the pride of place of saying, I come from a great place, a great nation. And that nation is Nigeria. I don't need a cover to cover the color of my passport. I can proudly show that it's green. And it's not the green of another country. It's the green passport of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I hope to God you answer truthfully. I hope to God that in every place that you are today, you will discuss this and we will find the answer. I hope to God we will not just discuss one more time today without finding solutions that are actionable, without purposing in our heart that we will move away from these conversations. Because when a man sits doing the same thing year in, year out, he's never going to get a different result. He will continue to get the same result. And that result is most definitely not what we seek. I don't know a Nigerian who thinks that this is our best. I don't know a Nigeria that seeks for us to remain where we are. I don't know a Nigerian That is not sometimes. There are many times of pride that we have, and I'm a very proud Nigerian. But there are many times that we are ashamed, and we cannot lie to ourselves. So to thyself be true. So at least in this conversation, let's be truthful to ourselves. I'd like to ask you my first question. What does Nigeria as a nation, what does it mean to you? Does it mean anything? Because, listening to some of what he said, I was just smiling because I thought, oh gosh, we seem to have had a meeting, but we didn't. What does Nigeria mean to you? Have you ever even thought about it? Does your mindset think in terms of the nation? Or does it think in terms of you, your family, your tribe, or your own specific community? Do you ever, in the course of spending time or making decisions, consider the things that you do in line with what you think Nigeria means to you? Or is there even the word Nigeria in your vocabulary? Because when we all need a passport, we can only get a Nigerian passport. There's no Ibadan passport for me. Neither is there Owerri passport, or Mbese, or Kaduna, or Kano, or Kotangura passport. There's only one passport. It's a Nigerian passport. So what does Nigeria mean to you? What do you identify it to be? What comes to your mind when you think about Nigeria? What picture do you have? Because that picture will affect how you innovate. It will affect how you think. It will affect how you work. It will affect the decisions that you make. It will affect how you're willing to fight and die for it. What picture of Nigeria do you have, if any? Because if we don't have any, then we have no nation. Are we tenants cohabiting in the same land space that is defined by the global community as Nigeria? Or is there truly a Nigeria? Do we accept and understand that? And does it have a real meaning to us? Because what we cannot visualize, how are we going to put solutions together to make it great? Who do you think we are? Who are we? Who? Everybody's quiet. Good. Think. Write. Discuss. We need to answer these questions so that we can know what our vision is. Because if we don't know who we are, we cannot have a vision for who we do not know. If we don't know what Nigeria is, we cannot fight for what we don't know. Where do you think we are right now? We'll probably get a lot more answers here because we're so quick to see the failings of our nation. We're so quick to see the troubles and the challenges without applying ourselves enough to finding the solutions. But we must first know what the nation is. We must first understand who we are before we can then make sense of what we think we are right now. And whatever it is that you think we are right now, where do we want to go from here? What is our common goal as a nation? Where do we want to go? What is our vision? What is the set agenda? What is the national agenda as inscribed in the heart of every single Nigerian? What do we believe for our country that we're all working towards? What are we committed to? What is that thing that stands, that is unchanging, that we measure every action and decision we're about to make against in order to know if we're making the right one or not? Where do we want to go, my people? My brothers, my sisters, my fellow citizens of a great nation, where do we want to go? without commonality of purpose, it's difficult for us to work together. But we must find that purpose. And when we find it, it's when we begin to ask, how do we get there? We have the most brilliant ideas across the board. We have the most brilliant Nigerians across the world. We can pull them all in, even as you have so many brilliant Nigerians here across the country, from every state and every tribe and every tongue. But where do we know that we want to go so that we can decide how we want to get there? I'm sorry, I didn't come to make you laugh. I just wanted to question your heart. I wanted you to think. I wanted you to deliberate. I wanted you to argue it out. But I want you at the end of the day to come to a place of conclusion that you know that being able to do all the things that all the speakers have spoken about today and all the things that we know, it's not impossible for us. But first, we must want it. We must agree as a nation, as a people. We can keep blaming our leaders. They have their own problems. But we, as a people, have to own our nation too. We have to want this nation to work. Some people spend so much time cursing this country. Our tongues do not bless this nation. True or false? We are so negative about it. We should criticize ourselves, but we should criticize to build. We should see a problem and be angry about it and innovate and seek to find the solution to the problem. Because we know why we want to do it. Because we know that this country must work for every single one of us, from the weakest to the strongest of us, to prosper. For us to be able to provide for those that are strong, those that are weak, for the men, for the women, for the children, for every community in the village, in the city, for every fatherless child and motherless child to still be able to have hope in the system of our country. How can we decide how we want to get to where we want to get to if we haven't first decided where we're going? So what I've come to do today is to start a national conversation. Because you see, when we get the conversation right, we will get the right kind of leaders for the conversation we have. Because our basis of voting, of the actions that we take, will be clear. People get the leaders they deserve. Yes. The people get the leaders they deserve. Your leaders, our leaders, are a reflection of us. So you cannot keep saying the leaders. How many people are those leaders? And how many people are the citizens of Nigeria? The people get the leaders they deserve based on their own actions or their inactions. What do we want for our nation? What is our common goal as a people? How do we get away from the things that easily destroy us, that have no reason to? How do we rise above our past into our future? How do we draw the line on the things that have happened? Yes, they have. A husband and a wife at war with each other that does not draw the line on whatever errors or mistakes of the past in order to build forward will never have a peaceful home, nor will they have a successful home. Obviously, we have offended ourselves at different times. We've had a civil war. Some parts of the country have not been fairly dealt with. Some parts have felt cheated. Some have felt disadvantaged. Okay. Yesterday is gone. We have had a tough ride. bringing many different nations or kingdoms together to build one nation was never meant to be an easy task. But we're here. We're together. We're bound together in the same pot. This is our country now, our one country, and it's called Nigeria. This is our nation. It's the only passport we all carry. Maybe some people have second passports, but we all have a green passport. We have to agree that we are going somewhere and we want to get there. But we must define where we're going. I didn't ask the questions to get the answers today. As you can see, I didn't ask anybody to put up their hands. I just want you not to be able to sleep because of those questions. I want you not to be able to rest easy because of those questions. I want you not to be able to take the next action that is against this country because of those questions. I want your children to start asking you about those questions. I want you to be able to stand up when your friends or your neighbors speak against what you will identify as a vision for this country. I want us to get to the point where we realize it's worth fighting for. Why? Because if it works well, it works for all of us. And in doing that, we're going to have to decide that it doesn't matter whether my brother is from Imo State, or somebody else is from Anambra State, or somebody else is from Kaduna State. What should matter to me is that that person is a Nigerian and has the ability, the capacity to do what has to be done in order to make the country that we'll all agree is ours to get to where we have agreed we want to go. Now, there will be always naysayers that will tell you, where have we agreed to go? Some will live in the past till they die. But that's not the future that you want to live in. Because those that want to tie us to a past that has not done us well are wicked people. When you do something over and over again and you don't get the results that you seek, you must know you're doing something wrong. As a business person, when your strategy isn't working, you must be honest enough to answer the questions and know that something is wrong here. There's time to make a change. We've been doing this long enough. It hasn't paid us as much as it should. As a matter of fact, it looks in some ways like it's taking us back. And we're allowing people to take advantage of it. I asked a few friends of mine across different space. I didn't want to do this SWOT on Nigeria by myself because I didn't want you to just have my opinion. So I asked a few people, do a SWOT on Nigeria and send it to me. I had a lot of information come back. It was interesting to see how so many people differently look at our country. The things we consider our strengths, the many things we consider our weaknesses, the many things we consider our opportunities, and the many threats that face us as a nation. They're real, but they're nothing when the people of the nation have a goal, a common goal, and are determined to apply their talents and their resources, which we have in abundance, towards turning every threat into an opportunity, or turning every opportunity into reality, and building on every strength that we have so that it doesn't become in itself a liability. And strengthening our weaknesses. See, having problems in a business is not the issue. It's not applying yourself to find solutions to the problem. That's what makes it come home to roost, to create problems for you. I'm not going to go through all of that. I just wanted you to see this is a summary of all that I got back from different people. But I've decided to just pick a few things out of it. Our easily and obviously celebrated asset is our population. Oh, we're so many. By 2050 or 2040 or whatever, whichever of the reports you're reading, we're going to be the third largest country in the world. After China and India, we'll probably be a country of about 400, 500 million people. Good for numbers. But guess what? It's not the population that is the real asset. It's how we handle that population that will turn it into a real asset for us or into a liability. Because if you have more people and less growth or increased income, it means per head what we can share will be less, which will only make our individual citizens poorer and hungry. And our facilities that are inadequate or infrastructure that is inadequate will itself be stretched. How can we turn our population into an asset? When you look at some of the weaknesses, you would see the issue of education. Empowering our people with the right skills. Having effective, productive education targeted at producing the manpower that we need for our national goals, which we must have identified. And therefore, we reorganize our educational system to empower that population of largely young people to be employable, to be productive, to be entrepreneurially effective, to be inventors of solutions to every kind of problem that we have, to be those that create companies that can earn us unimaginable income, because some problems that we face in Nigeria are common across many nations. When you solve it in Nigeria, you will earn income from every part of the world for Nigeria. And we have bright minds, which is why Nigerians prefer solutions in other environments where they're nurtured. All we need to do is decide that our population is going to be an asset. And from now, based on the goal we have identified for ourselves, we're deliberate about investing in nurturing that youthful population to deploy what is required for that vision to be actualized. Nigerians are migrating. Good. We're many, as we say. There are many nations that need people. No, listen to me. There are many nations that need people. So we can turn migration into a policy. We can turn a population into income-earning asset. We can be deliberate about identifying the parts of the world that need specific skills. And because we have a lot of young minds, we can retrain them, prepare them for those skills, have government-to-government negotiations or private sector-led companies that are based on preparing Nigerians to work in certain sectors in different parts of the world, repatriating income back to Nigeria. Our people can be a source of foreign exchange for us as a nation. There are countries who work on models that are not different from that. When you have a lot of people and you do not have the ability, so people are not accidentally just getting up randomly to go to Canada, to go to anywhere. No. Let's say, okay, our people are sought after, but to make them be sought after by other nations, what must they know? What must they have? How do we prepare processes that allows them to be trained? I know an African nation that is looking for 6,000 teachers. It's true. Nothing stops someone in that sector from building a program or investing in finding 6,000 unemployed graduates, preparing them with teaching methodology, teaching them about living in that country, telling them about how to be great ambassadors of Nigeria wherever they go to, and going to make a deal with that nation to say, we can provide you these teachers on contract, 5 years, 10 years, 3 years, they change, we move. If you go to Dubai, most of the hotels have Kenyans within the hospitality industry. Why? They were deliberate about setting up hospitality schools to train people to be exported into countries that need manpower for hospitality. We know how to greet people. We know how to be hospitable. We know how to embrace people. We have the natural culture to be right in hospitality if our people are trained as assets for that industry. So I'm saying a population can be a liability if we do not have specific, deliberate agendas applied to developing them for specific goals. Even with ourselves, we have needs. So it's not just about going to school. We sent a lot of people through university when they didn't need to. Because how many graduates do we need? We have an industrial revolution plan. Does it require all graduates? Or does it require a lot of skilled manpower that are well paid? How do we set up a system to make sure that they are trained with those skills for that specific assignment? Our population can be a liability, but is meant to be an asset. One part of our population we haven't paid enough attention to: women and young people. And this is not just about talking about women, it's a business issue. If your population is about 50-50 men and women, you have to be a foolish business person to make 50% of your asset ineffective in adding to the growth and development of your nation. Because it means you're going to overdrive the other 50%. Men will die trying to support the whole nation. When we have that other population that has brain, mind, can think, have ability to deploy and to create value, that all we need to do is agree as a nation that not a single girl will be left out of school, that not a single young woman will get married before she is ready, that every young woman will have the opportunity to be able to stand in her own economic status based on policy and plan. That we're not talking about strangers, we're talking about girls that will be your daughters if they're not already your daughters. We're talking about girls that will become wives to your children or your wives. We're talking about girls and women that are your mothers, your aunties, or that live around you. We need to pay attention to the women. I went to Canada to speak last year. And at this conference, they had the Deputy Minister of Montreal speak. And she said they wanted to see how to increase the growth of Montreal. I don't know what they use, counties, whatever. And they hired one of the major consulting firms, Bain & Co., McKinsey, I can't remember which one now. And they were amazed when the result came back. And they were told that they didn't tell them it's technology, they didn't tell them it's manufacturing, they didn't tell them it's this. They told them that for you to increase growth in your region, your investment would have to be in women and young people. That it was totally not what they expected. But in reality, it's not so difficult to figure that out. You know, if 50% of your population are men and they work at 100% capacity, what do you get as a nation? You get 100% of 50% of the population. You will never get 100%. If you add just another 50, 60, 70% of women to that, the numbers will change. for the mathematicians or statisticians around amongst you. Now think of the dynamics of our own population. The percentage of our population that is made up of young people. Think of if they have fully engaged. And I know there are a lot of solutions being deployed. But even at the African Union, the agenda is for 2060 something. That's too far. Some of us will be dead. No. For us as a nation, it's a little more urgent than that. For us to get to where we want to go, girls can have the solutions to some of the problems. Some young guys at whatever age can create the solutions that you need. We need every able-bodied Nigerian consumed with the task of building Nigeria in every way, applying their own talents and the resources made available to them. We need to draw on every resource that is available to us. And our men and our women are a major part of that. I also want to pull out one of the weaknesses, because one of the weaknesses is on a diversity of tribes and religion. And my question to you is it an asset or a liability? When my brother was speaking, you see, most of you murmured liability. When my brother was speaking, he talked about the Igbo apprenticeship model. It's been studied in business schools, by the way. It's been documented, and it's been studied in other places. The reality is, our diversity is a strength when we have mutual respect and love for one another. When we realize that the best ideas does not need to come from only one part of the country. That every single one of us has something that we bring to the table. That there's a value that is inherent in every part of the country. And that based on our culture, our region, our terrain, we grow up differently. If you take a child from the city or a child from the village, they've been exposed to different things. So their ability to create solutions will be influenced by their life exposure. So based on the different parts of the country where we live, because even the terrain, the landscape of Nigeria is not the same. So there are learnings we glean just from growing up in a certain part of the country. The advantage is that we can bring it all to the table. Bring every talent to the table. Why is it that if someone is appointed to something, the first question we ask is, where does he come from? He's Nigerian. Who cares where he comes from? Why don't you ask, what can he do for the nation? What talent does he have? What solution can he bring? What problem can he solve? How can he enhance the lives of every other Nigerian? Religion, hey. Oh. It's your personal relationship with God. Your personal relationship with God. Your personal relationship with God. You and every single Nigerian is guaranteed the independence of that by our constitution. What is it? When you die, are you going to die masked with other people to account for your religion? It's personal, it's you and your faith. Why are we weaponizing things that have no business being weaponized? If a Muslim lives upstairs and a Christian lives downstairs, and we have mutual respect for one another and love for one another as citizens of one nation, who do I know that will save my child on the day of trouble when I'm not there? You know, I wanted us to look at this a little more deeply, because we're playing with fire and we're allowing people who have ulterior motives to set us on fire. You know, when your neighbor's house is on fire, you can almost be sure, if you're not careful, he's going to come and burn your own too. So my next slide would upset some. But I wanted you to see what the face of war looks like. The destruction that nations go through. Every single picture there is from a nation that had a tribal or religious war. They didn't have a war with another country. They had wars with themselves. Mothers and fathers were destroyed. Children were left hopeless, wondering where to go. Men and women that can add value and create value for the economy were consumed in it. The nations never benefit from it. And after you have satisfied your emotions of the moment, because that's what it is, what do you then do? Because the reality of the degradation of a society will stare you in the face. I think the Rwandans are the best example we can see of a people who, after a horrible experience, decided it was never going to happen again. And they closed ranks and set a national goal, agreed what they wanted for their country to a large extent. And they have moved in leaps and in bounds. And they do not have what Nigeria has. They don't have our talents. They don't have our people. They don't have the strength of our diversity as much as we have. Theirs was Tutsi and Uti. We have God knows how many tribes. Who can count them? But when you are getting heated up and having a passionate conversation that can lead to destruction, this is what you are asking for. We have hurt ourselves in the past. We must get to the point where we decide never again. So when people around you start, whether for political gains or for anything, start those conversations against your nation, you must know what we want. That's why I asked the questions at the beginning. So we're clear. We do not want the destruction of our nation. We want a country that works for all of us. We want a country that will be productive, that allows the brilliance of our people to produce real results for our people, that allows all the policies and the ideas that we have, all the businesses that we want to execute, that allows them space to germinate. That within that system, we're able to raise the right kind of leadership or support the leaderships that we have, even as we continue to get better at it. That we celebrate our few successes, knowing that a nation is not built in a generation, but that we will continue at this with a clear goal, and we will arrive at destination, knowing that we do not want to watch our people destroyed and consumed. We can see what's going on in the Northeast. Whether you like it or not, they're your brothers and your sisters. They are my brother and my sister. And it's not just about faceless people. It's a mother, it's a child, it's a father, it's a wife, it's a little girl, a little boy. Human beings, real human beings, who are Nigerians, who are the end of every wrong action that we permit. And when there's pain on one side of the country, it has to be all of our pain. Because if there's fire on your neighbor's roof and you think it's not on yours, if you allow it long enough, it will catch, your own roof too will catch fire. So let's look ourselves in the face and understand that we are one nation. We must want it for it to happen. It doesn't matter what other people say. It doesn't matter what other people intend to do. This is our country. We must fight for it. And we must support every kind of leadership or people or persons or groups that will only enhance us in achieving that goal. I thought I'll take a few voices from the past. So I found this saying by Mandela. And why did I put this there? Because except we can forgive ourselves of the mistakes of the past. Except we can look into the faces of our people and say, oh, with you we made mistakes. With you we caused you pain. With you we made this error. But that's what? It's our past. And accept those people that we hurt one way or the other, that feel one thing or the other, whether it's 50 years ago, whether it's 100 years ago, whether it's 20 years ago, whether it's 10 years ago, there's a point where you must draw the line. Whether we say no more. Mandela said, as I walked out the door towards my freedom, out of the door of the prison, I knew that if I did not leave all the hunger, the hatred, the bitterness behind, that I would still be in prison. If we don't make a choice to forsake our past and leave all those things we keep referring to and going back to, if we don't decide that, okay, it's happened, let's draw the line, let's move forward. If we don't, we will always be in prison and in bondage to our past. And the future that we seek will only be a mirage. He said, resentment is like drinking poison and hoping it will kill your enemies. No, it will kill you first. We can't afford to resent each other or to hold on to resentment against one another based on the things that have happened in our past. Some of the things that the younger people are reminded to fight for and hold against other parts of the country, they were not even there. I understand the pain. I understand the passion. But we have a future. And if we want that future to work, we're going to have to draw a line in the sand. We must draw the line and we must forgive ourselves. We must make the choice to move forward together so we can build. I love Gandhi in many ways. And I chose one of his sayings. It says, our ability to reach unity in diversity will be the beauty and the test of our civilization. It will be the beauty and the test of our ability to build our nation. We must seek within us the grace and the unction to reach unity in our diversity. We cannot change our facts. We're a diverse nation. We can't do anything about it. We are already diverse. You can see nations that are walking from unity into disunity. You can see how they're unfolding in the nation, in the world. The more people pull away from unity. The Bible says in the place of unity, the Lord has done what? Commanded his blessings. A house divided against itself will do what? Cannot stand. That's why I asked you, what is our goal? What is our vision? What is our common goal? Because once we know that, then we will know the things we must do. We must forsake our past and face our future so that we can achieve that which we seek. Our future depends on what we do now. What we do now in terms of forgiving each other and holding our hands to work forward. What we do now in terms of investing in our education and making sure that every born child of this country is exposed to enough knowledge to be a useful adult for this nation in any way. What we do now concerning our healthcare, so that the life expectancy of our people will not be as short as it is right now. That Nigeria would have a life expectancy of 55 point something, and some nations in our neighborhood who are nothing compared to us can have up to 60 something. The things we do now, the children that are born today will lead in different spheres of our tomorrow. And we will have to live in our old age in the societies that they are controlling. So investing in them to make it right is important. Now what? As I close. Now what do we do? We've asked the questions. We've raised the questions. What do we need to do? We need one tribe in this nation. A tribe of Nigerians. A tribe with a common goal. A tribe with a common agenda. A people committed to working hand in hand to our future. A people committed to ensuring that we get the right kind of leadership at every turn, and that those people working with us as we express ourselves in the different spaces that we find ourselves, work towards that common goal of building a great nation that provides value for every single Nigerian at every level. And thinking together, because together we're stronger than when we think apart, or we stand apart, or we fight ourselves. God bless you.
Another round of applause, please, for Mrs. Ibukun Awosika. Thank you so much, ma'am.